In part one, we examined two extreme responses to suffering. Schopenhauer said that life is fundamentally suffering and not worth living. The honest response is withdrawal. But Nietzsche said to affirm life anyway, including its suffering. The strong response is amor fati and willing eternal recurrence. Both claimed to face reality without illusions, and both offered philosophies meant to guide how we actually live. But what happens when these extreme positions are tested in extreme situations? When someone faces genuine sustained suffering with no clear end? Well, Admiral James Stockdale discovered the answer as a prisoner of war in Vietnam for 7 years. And what he discovered was that neither pure optimism nor pure pessimism actually works well, that both positions fail when reality tests them to the extreme. The people who suffered were not optimists or pessimists, but something else entirely. James Stockdale was shot down over North Vietnam and spent 7 years as a prisoner of war. After his release, he was asked which prisoners did not make it and why. And his answer was unexpected. He said, "Oh, that's easy, the optimists." The optimists were the ones who said, "We're going to be out by Christmas." But Christmas would come and go, and then they'd say that we would be out by Easter, and then Easter would come and go, and then Thanksgiving and Christmas again. This cycle of hope and disappointment repeated until they died of broken hearts. The optimists' hope, because it was attached to specific unrealistic timelines, set them up for devastating disappointment. And the disappointment repeated over and over and over until it completely destroyed them. But it's not as if the pessimists did much better. Those who concluded from the start that they wouldn't survive and that the situation was hopeless, well, they simply gave up. Some literally stopped fighting to live, and others withdrew psychologically in ways that made them unable to endure. Pure pessimism led to despair, and that despair led to death or complete psychological collapse. The survivors, with Stockdale being among them, were neither optimists nor pessimists. They combined what seems like a contradictory attitude: absolute realism about their current situation with an unshakable faith that they would eventually prevail. They never doubted that they would get out, but they also did not set unrealistic expectations about how long it might take or how bad it might get before then. And this combination is what became known as the Stockdale paradox. It reveals something crucial about both optimism and pessimism: that taken to extremes, both can fail, and that you need elements of both while being captured by neither. Optimism fails when it detaches hope from reality. The prisoners who said we'll be out by a specific time were not necessarily being irrational, because rescue was possible and eventually did come. The problem was attaching hope to a specific timeline that reality did not necessarily support, and then experiencing the crushing disappointment when those timelines passed. And this creates a cycle where hope generates vulnerability to despair. The higher your expectations, the harder you fall when reality disappoints you. And if this happens repeatedly, the disappointment accumulates until it overwhelms your capacity to keep hoping. The optimist's faith was that rescue was imminent, and it made every passing day a small defeat, every passing milestone a devastating blow. Now, modern toxic positivity operates on very similar logic. To say that you should just stay positive or that everything happens for a reason and it'll all work out, well, these platitudes treat optimism as a sufficient response to genuine hardship. But when reality doesn't cooperate and things don't work out, and there is no good reason for why they don't, then the optimistic framework collapses and takes hope with it. The optimistic prisoners could not adapt their strategies because adaptation would require acknowledging that rescue was not necessarily imminent, and that acknowledgement would shatter their optimistic framework. But it's not as if pessimism is the answer, because that also fails, just in a different way. Where optimism creates vulnerability to despair through disappointed hope, pessimism creates despair directly by declaring hope irrational. If the situation is truly hopeless, and if suffering has no meaning, then why persist? The pessimistic prisoner who concluded they wouldn't survive had eliminated any reason to keep fighting. Schopenhauer's pessimism faces this exact problem. If life genuinely is not worth living, and if non existence would be preferable, then why continue existing? Schopenhauer had philosophical answers, but they did not address the practical question. How do you sustain motivation to endure hardship when you've concluded existence is a net negative? The prisoner who believes rescue will never come has no reason to maintain physical fitness, mental acuity, or social bonds with other prisoners. All of the things that might help survival if rescue does come. The pessimistic framework becomes self-fulfilling. By declaring the situation hopeless, you stop doing things that could improve it, and thereby make it more hopeless. Pessimism also mistakes accurate perception of hardship for wisdom. The situation was bad, but that did not make it hopeless, and treating it as hopeless made survival much less likely. And this is the trap of both extremes. Optimism ignores present reality in favor of wished-for futures, while pessimism extrapolates from present reality and declares that all futures are equally bleak. Both fail to hold present circumstances and future possibilities in proper relationship. You need to see your situation clearly, without letting that clear vision determine what is possible. And Albert Camus offered a philosophical framework that escapes both optimism and pessimism by rejecting the question that they're trying to answer in the first place. Both are asking, given that existence involves suffering, is life worth living? Camus says, the question assumes existence should have cosmic meaning or justification, and that assumption is the problem. For Camus, human existence is actually a little absurd. We are meaning-seeking creatures in a universe that literally can provide no meaning. We want answers to why we exist, what it's all for, and whether suffering serves some kind of purpose. But the universe and our spirits do not give us an answer. This confrontation between our demand for meaning and the world's silence is the absurd. The optimist responds by inventing meaning, saying that everything happens for a reason, suffering serves a purpose, and that life is fundamentally good. But Camus does not agree. He thinks that this is escaping the absurd by pretending it does not exist. Now, the pessimists, like Schopenhauer, also escape by declaring life meaningless and withdrawing from engagement. Both are refusing to live in the tension of the absurd. Camus's alternative is revolt. Recognizing the absurdity, that existence has no cosmic meaning, and that suffering serves no grand purpose, and live fully anyway. Not because you have found meaning, but because you've decided to create it despite its absence. And this is neither an optimistic or a pessimistic point of view. It's not claiming that life is fundamentally good or that suffering will eventually be redeemed. It's simply acknowledging that life is absurd neither good nor bad cosmically, but just indifferent to our meaning seeking. For Stockdale's prisoners, this would mean recognizing the situation is terrible and it may last indefinitely. You shouldn't invent false hope about imminent rescue, but you also should not conclude that the situation is completely hopeless. Instead, focus on what you can control, maintaining dignity, resisting when possible, and supporting other prisoners. And most importantly, preparing for survival however long it takes. So, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time.